Welcome to Criminal Law Unfiltered.
Welcome back to Criminal Law Unfiltered with RobertMHelfend. Robert is the founder of the Helfend Law Group and has spent more than 4 decades defending people accused of serious state and federal crimes across California. Over the year, he's seen that some of the most damaging problems in a criminal case don't come from the charges themselves. They come from assumptions people make early on that quietly work against them. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're focusing on common assumptions defendants make to end up hurting their defense. Robert, sir, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here as usual.
Robert, what are some of the most common assumptions people make after being accused of a serious felony?
You know, if you've never been involved, it's basically like a bad dream. Like, how did I get here? So if you don't have any experience in the system, maybe you think that you could talk them out of it, and that's mistake number one. Thinking that you could talk the police out of it. They want you to do that. The police want you to come in and tell them why they made a mistake. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to talk to the police because you think they made a mistake. Somebody told them about, some victim said something about you. So it's always best not to say anything to the police, period. You're not going to talk them out of it. It's best to get counsel, and I talk to them and I tell them, the police, that my client's not going to make a statement. If you want some clarification, maybe I'll clarify it for you. Because if I clarify it, that's not evidence. They can't use that as evidence. So that's one thing. Another thing is, don't contact the victim, okay? Another thing is, in sex cases, for instance, if you learn of an accusation against you, many times, if they've contacted the police have directed them to contact you on a recorded phone call and get you to apologize. So you got to be wary in those kinds of situations that if it's a sex case, and I mean, with kids or another person, a sexual assault, many times prosecutors and police agencies, really, they want corroborating evidence, meaning they want evidence that's going to back up the victim's story that this actually happened. And so they'll have the victim, or in case of a minor kid, maybe even the victim's mom, contact you on a recorded phone call to talk about, get you to apologize. Okay? And I've seen that numerous times. And you need to be aware that could happen and end the conversation. If you don't end the conversation immediately, you can say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'll talk to you later, and hang up.
What about this, Robert? How can assuming a case is not that serious limit options later on, kind of not taking it seriously?
Well, I don't know that it's going to limit your options later on. I mean, what I'm saying is we can go back to this assumption of not talking to the police. I've had many cases. I just had a young kid have sex with a minor. I mean, it wasn't forced or anything. They just had, they did what they did, and they were having a good time. But you're not supposed to do that. That's all. And the kid told the whole story. How, okay, I did. I had sex with her. I also had oral sex with her, and so the kid, admitted everything. And so when you say limit your options later on, the problem, well, as we litigated that case, the DA tried to make the allegations against my client worse. So in the beginning, I'm fighting against them trying to add, at the preliminary hearing that we had, we were fighting tooth and nail. This prosecutor was trying to add forcible rape instead of statutory rape. Statutory rape is just having sex with a minor. You don't have to register. You can reduce it to a misdemeanor. But this guy or girl was trying to get a forcible rape out of it by like taking one line out of this police report. So we had to fight that out. Defeated them on that one. And then as we got down the road to try and resolve the case, the problem was I had no leverage. I have nothing. I have no leverage because of the mistake of the kid. And you don't blame the kid. The kid doesn't really know. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He admits to everything, but he talked too much. And so, one of the counts against him cannot be reduced to a misdemeanor. Although he's not going to go to prison and he's not going to register, now one of the consequences that's facing this person is that we can't reduce one of the charges to a misdemeanor. And that's really sad. And I thought the DA would allow us to plead, take responsibility, but allow us to the opportunity by dismissing the one count so I could clean his record down the road. But of course, the DA says, okay, I will do that. You want to be able to reduce these, I'll dismiss that charge. But instead of your client not going to prison, then I want him to go to prison and I want him to register as a sex offender. And then you can have the two counts that you want so you could reduce it to a misdemeanor. And so what's the choice? What choice do you want to make? And the client's in this box because they talk too much. And so that is a consequence that I can't tell you enough. You just don't want to talk to the police because it takes away your leverage, my leverage, to help you later on. And statements that you make, sometimes they can't be overcome.
To that point, though, why does trying to explain or clarify your situation on your own, without any representation, tend to backfire on them? Is it just because they'll use it against you, or is it just, what have you seen in your experience?
Well, just an example that I just told you, they absolutely used it against him because without us in a case like that, where, okay, like it's a statutory rape, you're having sex with a minor, if you don't say anything at all, then you actually make it harder for the DA to prove the case because you've given yourself the defense of, I wasn't there. Okay. So by saying anything, when you say it was consensual to a police officer in a sexual assault case, you're basically saying, yeah, I was there. And so having the I wasn't there defense is really crucial because having the I wasn't there defense, I can use that as we get closer to trial and say, he wasn't there. Do you really want to put your victim on the stand to my grueling cross-examination? My client's saying he wasn't there. And if they don't have any forensic evidence to prove that he was, that's a problem. And so you can use that to get a really good deal for your client. So he doesn't have to try the case. And that's the deal. Okay. You can't put your foot in your mouth because, I talked about that homicide case. We talked about that trial I just finished. They had no statement from my client. They had no idea what he was going to say. And so everything he said was the first time they heard it, which is exactly what you want.
Wow.
And you know something? He was completely consistent with the evidence they showed that I forced them to show. Okay. They didn't want to put on the evidence which explained the whole situation. They didn't even want to do that. But because we forced them to do so, when he got on the stand, it was quite easy. He just presented evidence which supported what other witnesses have said. And so it's just, over and over and over again. I keep telling you this in this podcast. You just don't want to make statements. Okay. You don't want to make statements. Now, I just thought of another situation where it is important to get somebody to do something early in a case, but it's not within the first 48 hours. It's during the case. So like when you have a vehicular homicide, I had a guy, he had a prior DUI. His blood alcohol was, not terribly high. It was like a 0.15 when the limit is 0.08. And he barreled over this car, but the car itself had tried to get off the freeway, clips a big rig, swirling around, and ends up going headfirst into the retaining wall, the center divider.
Wow.
So now it's got no lights that are facing oncoming traffic. It's black. You can't even see it. So my client barrels into it, just going 65, but he barrels into the car. And everybody was, unfortunately did not make it in the accident in the other car. So what we did was we locked up one of the best accident reconstruction people in the business. And he was charged with murder for that because he had a prior DUI. But because that we locked up one of the best accident reconstruction people early in the game, we could show the accident was actually not his fault because it was the fault of the driver because they cut off a big rig to try to they were 2 lanes over, tried to merge 2 or 3 lanes to get off and didn't make it. They clipped the front left bumper of the semi truck, spun around, hit the center divider, and my client did not have enough time to see and react, and put on the brakes. So it wasn't his fault. So we were able to get him out of that murder charge. So that's an example of doing something early that could help your cause. But as far as when you know that you're under investigation, just don't talk to the police. You call a lawyer, because what I do is I contact the cops and you try to make it friendly. Okay, you try to make it friendly with them so that you can get them to tell you, okay, tell me when you submit this report to the DA, because then I can call them and we can talk about what the next steps are. Okay, I'm always trying to prevent my client from being forcibly, extracted from their home so I can turn them in. So they don't have the traumatic experience of just being arrested, in public in front of their family. So that's what I do. I called the police officer yesterday on a misdemeanor case, and I told him who I was. This is who I'm representing. He had no idea who I was when I said the client, but I had the case number. So when I gave him the case number, oh, let me look. Meaning these guys have so many cases going on. Oh yeah, this one. I said, yeah, you called my client and hey, I'm representing him. So he goes, yeah, we want to hear his side of the story. I only have one side. And so I had to tell him, I tried to say it really nicely. I understand you're doing your job, but you understand I'm doing my job. And my job is to tell you that we're not going to make a statement. Okay. So would you be kind enough to tell me, when you're going to turn this over to the DA so I can be in touch with them? Oh, well, this guy, he goes something like, well, if you're not going to give a statement, I don't have any obligation to say that to you, tell you that. And so I said to him, officer, you must be really new on the job, huh? Because when you make a statement like that to me, you're not taking this personally, are you? We're just both doing our jobs. I'm just being professional. Right. It's just professional courtesy. That's all. I'm just asking you. Well, look, I've got other things to do in this case, and it's not being turned over, right away. So, okay, Thank you, sir. I'm really happy. I'm glad we had this opportunity to chat. I'll call you back in a couple weeks. Okay? Yes, thanks. So, I mean, these are the little things that you can do. I can make life a lot easier for people if they call me early because I deal with the police for them and I deal with the DA. That doesn't necessarily mean that the charges aren't going to be filed against somebody. But what it does is it takes out the stress that you have, at least some of the stress level that you have, that they're going to come for me. When is that going to happen? So, I mean, I can be the person in between you and the authorities so that we can surrender, or I can tell you, hey, they're going to mail you a letter letting you know when your court date will be. Things like that I can do for you. And that's what I do.
Amazing. Robert, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All righty, guys, that's it for today's episode of Criminal Law Unfiltered. Serious criminal cases are rarely derailed by one big mistake. More often, they're weakened by small assumptions made early on. If you'd like to learn more about RobertMHelfend and the work he does at the Helfend Law Group, visit RobertMHelfend.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone else who may benefit from it as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.